Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we really try to cut through all the noise, the dense research, and just distill a whole stack of sources down into the essential, fascinating insights you need. We want you to understand some of the world's most compelling figures.
And today, we're diving deep into Bruce Wagner. He's a really genuinely unique American novelist and screenwriter. He uses this glittering, sometimes apocalyptic, often kind of absurd lens of Hollywood
Right.
to explore these incredibly deep spiritual and, existential themes. It's quite a mix.
He provides a crucial shortcut, honestly. It's like instead of slogging through endless analyses of Hollywood culture, Wagner just takes you straight to the contradiction right in its heart, doesn't he?
He really does.
We've been tracing his path, and it's remarkable. I mean, from being a high school dropout and literally a chauffeur in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, driving the actual cars.
Exactly. All the way to becoming this critically acclaimed author, collaborating with cinematic heavyweights, people like David Cronenberg, Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
It's quite the journey.
And our mission today, really, is to uncover those key dualities that define his career. Because he isn't just, a writer about Hollywood. He's more like an observer of the world's spiritual sickness, if you will, diagnosed through the very specific cultural disease that is LA celebrity culture.
That's a good way to put it.
As the sources really emphasize, his work is defined by this apocalyptic yet ultimately spiritual view of humanity as seen through the lens of Hollywood. And that tension, right, the super high-gloss surface versus the, let's say, existential rot underneath, that's the intellectual engine. It drives pretty much everything he creates.
And it's that insider-outsider status, I think, that makes him so relevant, so potent. He doesn't just critique the wealthy from afar. He actually lived among them, servicing them, driving them around, witnessing their private vulnerabilities and their public absurdities, firsthand.
Absolutely. He had a front row seat. So let's start digging into that contradiction right at the beginning. Bruce Allen Wagner, born in Madison, Wisconsin, 1954. So not a native Angelino, which is interesting.
Yeah, that initial geographic distance, even though it was brief, maybe it helped shape those later observational skills. Gave him a bit of perspective before he was immersed.
Could be. The family moved around quite a bit, actually. First to San Francisco when he was about 4, and then 4 years later, they landed permanently in Los Angeles.
Okay. So moving right into the core of the spectacle at age 8, that kind of sets the backdrop for everything else that follows, you'd think.
Definitely. And the family life itself, it sort of mirrors the shifting ambitions of LA in that mid-century period. His father, Morton Wagner, he was a media guy, started in radio, then moved into TV. He actually produced The Les Crane Show.
Oh, wow, The Les Crane Show. That was a pretty significant cultural moment in the 60s, wasn't it? Kind of edgy for its time.
Very much so. But then eventually his dad pivoted and became a stockbroker. So you see that shift, right? From the creative spectacle to the more solid world of finance.
That's a very LA trajectory in itself, almost. Meanwhile, his mother, Bernice Milletz, she created her own kind of stability after his parents divorced. Worked for, 40 years at Saks Fifth Avenue?
40 years, yeah, at Saks. So you've got these twin pillars of Beverly Hills culture right there in his background. The, fleeting nature of media fame on one side and the sort of enduring nature of high-end commerce on the other.
Those must have been his first lessons, really, in how that whole ecosystem of wealth and illusion operates, seeing it from both angles.
But the real education arguably came when he kind of rejected the traditional path. He went to Beverly Vista Elementary, then Beverly Hills High School, the schools of the elite.
Right in the heart of it.
But he dropped out junior year. And this is the pivotal moment, I think. He basically traded that academic conformity for, real raw material experience.
And that real world experience, it was just so intensely varied. It gave him this immediate insight into the whole spectrum of human desperation, human privilege. He worked in bookstores, that connects him to the literary world.
Sure, the bookish side.
But then he also drove an ambulance. For Schaefer Ambulance Service, that's a world away from Saks and stockbrokers.
Yeah, let's pause there for a second. Driving an ambulance, that's an intensely visceral, frontline kind of job, isn't it?
Totally.
You're dealing with sudden death, profound injury, trauma. You're seeing humanity at its absolute most vulnerable, its most raw. And then to transition from that to driving a black car for the elite at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
That contrast is just, it's everything, isn't it? As a chauffeur, suddenly you're dealing with, sometimes profound triviality, right?
Exactly.
Ferrying people to dinners, meetings, fancy parties,
Yeah.
just watching their self-important dramas unfold in the rearview mirror.
But in both roles, think about it, the ambulance driver and the chauffeur, he was privy to these highly confidential, often intensely emotional moments in people's lives.
Yeah.
He was like the invisible servant, wasn't he, of both life and death, you could say, of profound crisis on one hand and privileged boredom on the other.
That's really the origin of his narrative voice, you feel. This ground-level perspective gave him that aha moment, that insight that very few writers ever really get. He wasn't just relying on gossip columns or media reports.
No, he was witnessing it. The casual cruelty, maybe the drug use, the backroom deals, the sheer desperation that can define the privileged class when they think no one's watching, or when they think the person watching doesn't matter.
He literally got paid to watch the mechanisms of power and anxiety up close. He wasn't writing about Hollywood from the outside looking in. He was writing from the passenger seat, wasn't he?
Right in the center of the action.
Knowing the secret geography of the city, the hidden drives, the discreet entrances, all that stuff.
Okay, so he's armed with this immense sort of catalog of real-life material. He starts writing in his 20s. But Hollywood, being Hollywood, well, it didn't exactly roll out the red carpet immediately for his unique insights.
No surprise there, maybe. His first actual attempt at a screenplay, Young Lust, back in 1984. It got produced by the legendary Robert Stigwood.
Yeah, Stigwood, Saturday Night Fever, Grease. Big name.
Huge. But, tellingly, the film was never released, just shelved. A near miss that really speaks volumes about the capricious nature of the industry he was already starting to critique.
That must have been a blow. And that disappointment, that feeling of having created something that maybe only insiders saw or nobody saw, it led him to a really critical pivot. Literature. He apparently channeled that frustration into creating a modern take on F. Scott Fitzgerald's Pat Hobby short stories.
Oh, interesting. The Pat Hobby connection. Remind us, Hobby is the sort of washed-up, alcoholic screenwriter, right? Always struggling, never quite catching a break in the old studio system.
That's him exactly. The personification of Hollywood failure, pretty much. And by choosing that archetype, Wagner was kind of signaling, I think, that his work wasn't just going to be about glamorous celebrity. It was more about the existential struggle, the crushing banality sometimes of just striving within that system.
Right, the desperation behind the facade.
Yeah. And this archetype, combined with his own history as chauffeur days, it all coalesced into his breakthrough literary work, Force Majeure, the Bud Wiggins stories, published in 1991. And this book gave us Bud Wiggins, the chauffeur protagonist, the ultimate invisible witness.
And it's crucial to remember how grassroots this success was initially, right? He didn't have a big publisher at first.
No, not at all. He actually self-published it initially with Caldecott Chubb. They printed just 1,000 copies.
Wow, 1,000.
Yeah, very small run. But the word spread like wildfire, especially within the industry he was, skewering. And those copies just flew off the shelves at Book Soup.
Book Soup, yeah. The literary heart of West Hollywood. That immediate sellout, it kind of showed that the industry recognized itself in the mirror he was holding up, didn't it? Even if it was uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely. And the recognition was instant and it was high level. Oliver Stone, a titan known for his visceral, often confrontational cinema, he optioned the book immediately, wanted to direct it.
Oliver Stone. Again, another huge Hollywood promise. But, like Young Lust,
it ultimately fell through, never came to fruition as a Stone film, which, again, kind of underscores Wagner's recurring themes of fleeting success. Promises unfulfilled in that world.
But the material itself, the core story, was clearly enduring. Bud Wiggins, that chauffeur observer character, he became Wagner's most important creation, arguably.
For sure. And Wagner himself confirmed that the script, based on those stories, the one that really captured the decadence and the spiritual hollowness of L.A. in the early 90s that eventually evolved, it became the script for the film Maps to the Stars.
The 2014 film with Cronenberg.
Exactly. So it took, over 2 decades for that initial ground floor perspective, that chauffeur's view, to finally hit the big screen in that form.
That's incredible persistence.
Yeah.
And that initial literary success with Force Majeure, even though the Stone movie didn't happen, it cemented his reputation, didn't it? Led to a major publishing deal.
Yeah, with Random House. And his output then became pretty prolific and critically validated, too. I'm Losing You came out in 96. It wasn't just another novel. It got named a New York Times Notable Book of the Year.
And what's that one about, Bradley?
It's a really terrifyingly precise exploration of mortality, aging, and just the desperate length Angelinos particularly go to deny both of those things. Very L.A., very Wagner.
Sounds intense. And then a few years later.
Yeah, about 5 years later, The Chrysanthemum Palace in 2005. That one was a Peen Faulkner finalist in 2006. Big literary recognition.
The Chrysanthemum Palace. Even the title suggests maybe a move toward more spiritual or historical themes, not just contemporary satire.
I think so, yeah. It focuses more on a kind of doomed, maybe haunted aristocracy within LA. He wasn't just writing about the here and now anymore. He was starting to place Hollywood in this broader historical and crucially moral context.
And his satirical eye was just so sharp, clearly, that he wasn't confined just to novels. He started becoming a commentator too, right?
Yeah.
Leveraging those insights.
Exactly. He started writing op-eds, essays for really prestigious publications, The New Yorker, The New York Times, Vanity Fair, even Art Forum. He sort of became the authoritative voice, in a way, on that specific intersection of wealth, misery, and maybe spiritual questing in LA.
It really leads us back to that quote you mentioned earlier from the novelist John Pistelli. It really seems to encapsulate why Wagner's work endures, Pistelli said. His work exists in several different epochs simultaneously. Bruce Wagner's time has never left, is sure to arrive, and has come at last.
It's such a great quote.
It's powerful, yeah. But what does that really mean, do you think, in terms of his writing style, his impact? Why does it feel like it's always relevant?
Well, I think it suggests that while the surfaces of his work are incredibly specific, he'll mention the latest plastic surgery fad or the most exclusive restaurant, that kind of detail.
Yeah, very contemporary details.
But the core themes beneath that surface are absolutely timeless. We're talking envy, mortality, the abuse of power, the search for meaning in a purely materialistic world. These are ancient concerns.
Right.
He writes about contemporary apocalypse, sure, but his concerns are essentially mythological or maybe spiritual at their root, and the way celebrity culture, especially in LA, just accelerates and magnifies those ancient human flaws. Well, that ensures his work always feels relevant, always feels urgent, pretty much regardless of the year you read it.
So his literary success was clearly established, but it seems like it was always intertwined with his screenwriting aspirations, wasn't it? He never fully left that world behind.
No, never. And his path back into the cinematic world, or maybe his continued presence in it, is surprisingly eclectic. It moves from that really highbrow satire we've been talking about all the way to, well, lowbrow horror, almost.
Yeah, that's a jump. Seems like a perfect illustration, maybe, of the practical compromises you sometimes have to make in Hollywood.
Could be. I mean, how does the acclaimed novelist who writes these searing critiques about the decaying soul of Beverly Hills end up co-writing a sequel about, a dream demon with knives for fingers?
Right. How did that happen? The Nightmare on Elm Street connection.
It apparently all came down to a cold read. Wes Craven, the master of horror,
Legend.
He read one of Wagner's unproduced scripts, a high-concept thing called They Sleep by Night, and Craven was apparently really impressed by Wagner's grasp of psychological tension, his way with atmosphere.
Okay, so Craven saw something beyond just satire.
Exactly. And then Craven recruited Wagner to co-write A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. That was 1987.
And that collaboration itself is actually pretty historically significant when you look at who was involved.
It really is. Wagner shares the story by credit with Wes Craven himself, plus Chuck Russell, who later directed The Mass and the Blob remake, and Frank Darabont.
Frank Darabont, Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, later The Walking Dead showrunner. That's an incredible assembly of talent on a horror sequel.
It's wild, isn't it? A literary satirist, the master of horror, a future blockbuster director, and a future prestige TV creator. Talk about an unlikely training ground. But if you actually look closely at Dream Warriors, the third Elm Street film, it's very focused on the psychological landscape of the kids, on institutional failure, the hospital setting, the trauma of youth, themes that are not actually entirely alien to Wagner's other work, if you think about it.
That's a good point. So he kind of cut his teeth, maybe learned some mechanics in the commercial trenches of the horror genre. Pacing, suspense, that sort of thing.
Probably. But he pretty quickly returned to his own unique vision with that cult miniseries, Wild Palms.
Ah, yes. Wild Palms, 1993. That felt pure Wagner, didn't it?
Totally. He created it, co-executive produced it for ABC based on a comic strip he'd actually written for Details magazine.
Right, I remember that comic.
And it was just this surreal, almost proto-cyberpunk vision of a future Los Angeles, saturated with virtual reality, weird new religions, media fascism. It was a perfect expression, really, of his anxieties about spiritual collapse combined with technological takeover.
Very prescient in some ways. And the fact that he co-executive produced that with Oliver Stone again.
Yeah, Stone again.
It just underscores his ability to attract these high-caliber, risk-taking collaborators, people who maybe shared his slightly paranoid, definitely apocalyptic view of American power and culture.
He clearly resonated with certain types of filmmakers. And he showed remarkable range, too, extending into comedy. He was an executive producer and co-writer with Tracy Ullman for her show, Tracy Ullman's State of the Union.
Oh, I love that show. From 2008 to 2010, right?
That's the one. And that allowed him to use these short, sharp comedic sketches to comment on contemporary politics, celebrity life. Basically applying that satirical scalpel he has, but in a faster, lighter format.
Very versatile. But the true full circle moment, I think, has to be the film adaptation of his original Chauffeur stories, Maps to the Stars, 2014.
Absolutely. And this was a script that David Cronenberg, the master of body horror, psychological decay, that kind of unsettling cinema, had apparently been determined to make for nearly a decade.
A decade? Why so long? Was it just too dark for studios?
Apparently, yeah. The script is just so relentlessly dark, so critical of Hollywood's, self-cannibalization, its incestuous nature. It was deemed pretty much unmakeable for years.
Wow.
But Cronenberg, he recognized a kindred spirit in Wagner, I think. Someone else who saw the physical and moral decay inherent in obsessive ambition, particularly in that LA context.
A perfect pairing in hindsight. And when the film finally premiered, it was a critical triumph, wasn't it? Especially for Julianne Moore.
Oh, totally. Julianne Moore gave this incredible, unhinged performance as Havana Sigrand, the fading, deeply unstable actress. And she won Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival for it in 2014. Major award.
And here's the kicker. The delightful, absurd irony that Wagner himself must just appreciate.
Go on.
Wagner was the person who actually accepted the award on Julianne Moore's behalf at Cannes. She couldn't be there.
No way, seriously.
Oh. Yeah. So the high school dropout who used to drive the black cars around Beverly Hills was standing on arguably the most prestigious stage in the cinematic world, accepting an award for a film that absolutely skewers the very industry he's now being celebrated by.
That's peak Wagner, isn't it? He became the ultimate insider, celebrating his own ultimate critique. Amazing.
And the layers keep going. If you look really closely at the film, the irony deepens even more. Wagner has an uncredited acting cameo as Benji's chauffeur. Benji's the horrible child star character.
Stop it. He plays a chauffeur in the movie based on his chauffeur stories.
He literally returned to the role that provided him with all the initial insights, like closing the loop perfectly on his professional journey. The observer became the material, and then the observer played the observer in the final product. It's wild.
It's a perfect metaphor for his whole career, really. He operates at the highest levels, gets the awards, the recognition, but he always seems to retain that critical, ground level, maybe chauffeur's perspective.
Yeah. And we shouldn't forget his own directing efforts, too. He adapted his own novels, like I'm Losing You in '98 and Women in Film in 2001.
Right. Trying to maintain control over the vision. He seems like an artist who's just dedicated to translating his singular, often difficult vision, regardless of the medium or, the commercial challenges involved.
So with that incredible trajectory, Cannes Award, collaborations with Cronenberg and Stone, literary acclaim, you might think Wagner had finally achieved this sort of comfortable autonomy within the industry, right?
You'd think so, but his dedication to, let's call it, uncompromising truth, or his version of it, eventually put him on this direct collision course with a much newer kind of gatekeeper. Not just Hollywood money, but the contemporary culture of publishing anxiety, sensitivity concerns.
Right. This is a really crucial pivot in his career, isn't it?
Right.
Moving from satirizing Hollywood's greed and vanity to grappling with these newer cultural constraints on artistic language itself.
Absolutely. And this whole conflict centers on his 2020 novel, The Marvel Universe, Origin Stories.
Okay, so what happened there? He had a book deal, right?
Yeah, he signed a deal for this book with Counterpoint Press back in 2019. He delivered the manuscript. Everything seemed fine initially, but then the relationship apparently soured pretty quickly. The editor and publisher deemed specific language within the novel to be problematic.
Problematic. That word carries a lot of weight these days. What was the specific issue?
Well, we have to analyze the specific objection because it's really instructive about the climate, I think. The issue wasn't like a general condemnation of the whole work's themes or anything. It focused very specifically on the word fat.
The word fat.
Yeah, apparently there is a character in the book, a 500-pound woman, who playfully self-identifies using that word. She calls herself the Fat Joan. And Wagner intended this as an homage, apparently, to the popular social media personality, the Fat Jew.
Okay, so it's character voice, self-description, possibly satirical or provocative.
Exactly. But the publisher reportedly drew a really hard line. They asserted that, quote, not even a character can call herself that.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
that's a significant stance. It effectively argues that certain words or phrases, regardless of the context, regardless of the character's intention, regardless of any satirical purpose, are just completely off limits in contemporary fiction now.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. And the writer Sam Wasson, he wrote about this conflict in an Airmail article called Bruce Wagner's Woke Universe. And Wasson noted speculation that the editor might have been cautioned by sensitivity readers.
Ah, sensitivity readers. Those consultants brought in to vet manuscripts for potential offense or controversy before publication.
Right. Now, whether they were officially involved or it was just the publisher's internal policy reflecting that trend, the outcome was the same.
This raises such fundamental questions for any artist, especially a satirist, doesn't it? If a character can't even use self-deprecating or playful language about themselves, language that's meant to be provocative. Well, the satire, which so often relies on exaggeration and even offense to reveal societal truths, it becomes almost impossible, right?
It really hamstrings it. And Wagner's response was immediate, and it was profound. He really emphasized the stakes involved for him. He stated publicly, quote, my entire body of work would be thrown into a furnace if it were to be read and judged by sensitivity readers.
Thrown into a furnace. That's not hyperbole for him, is it? It sounds like a core statement of his artistic philosophy.
I think it is. Satire demands the freedom to let characters speak in messy, inappropriate, sometimes even self-destructive ways. That's how it holds a mirror up to society's own flaws. If the publisher feels they have to clean up the mirror first, then the reflection becomes useless, doesn't it? Distorted.
Completely. So rather than compromise his artistic vision, change the character's voice, or spend potentially years trying to find another traditional publisher willing to take on what was now perceived as a risky book, Wagner made this really radical, highly unconventional choice.
He basically rejected the entire commercial model that he'd been navigating and critiquing his whole life.
What did he do?
He chose the path of, ultimate artistic integrity over any potential financial gain. On October 13th, 2020, he released the complete novel, The Marvel Universe, Origin Stories, for free, into the public domain, on his own website, brucewagner.la.
Wow. Just gave it away. For a professional novelist whose work is literally his livelihood,
Yeah.
that's a massive statement. It's like an act of cultural protest against editorial constraint.
It really is. And think about the implications for you, the listener, or for any creator. This is a rejection of that whole Hollywood contract culture, the publishing gatekeepers, everything he spent his life writing about. He essentially said, look, if you won't let me publish the truth as I see it with the language necessary for it, then I'll just give the truth away.
Incredible. And what happened after he released it for free? Did people just download it?
Well, yeah, people could download it freely, but the aftermath highlights the sort of strange realities of modern publishing and distribution too. Even though he gave the book away, it very quickly became available as a print-on-demand title through Amazon. Ah, okay. So people could buy a physical copy if they wanted. Did he get royalties from that?
No. Sticking absolutely to his choice, Wagner receives zero profit from those Amazon on-demand sales.
He really committed to the principle then.
Fully. He did allow a limited signed edition to be printed by a new small publisher called Felix Farmer Press. But again, by his own explicit choice, he receives no monetary gain from that limited run either. He just wanted the integrity of the material preserved, outside of what he saw as the commercial pressure cooker that wanted to dilute it.
It's just a remarkable demonstration of his dedication to his voice, his specific language, above absolutely everything else.
Above profit, above platform, above convenience, yeah.
This decision, then, to basically sacrifice profit for principle, it leads us directly to the other major theme, often quieter but always present in Bruce Wagner's life and work. The spiritual seeker.
Exactly. This is the ultimate duality we talked about at the start, isn't it? The man who writes so savagely about the profane artifice of Hollywood is also simultaneously deeply dedicated to a kind of transcendent spiritual path. When you look at his work through that lens, suddenly the apocalyptic themes, the constant focus on death, karma, rebirth maybe.
Mm,
It all makes much more sense, doesn't it? It's not just satire. There's a spiritual framework there.
absolutely. And this path, it seems to have begun formally, or at least taken a very significant turn, back in 1994.
What happened in 94?
That was the year Wagner interviewed the famous and controversial shaman and author Carlos Castaneda. He did the interview for Details magazine.
Ah, Castaneda.
Yeah.
Huge figure in the counterculture and New Age movement, the teachings of Don Juan.
Right. And that encounter, it clearly wasn't just a journalistic assignment for Wagner. It proved absolutely pivotal. It led to Wagner becoming deeply integrated into Castaneda's inner circle.
Really? Inside Castaneda's group. And did he join under his own famous name?
No, interestingly, he adopted an assumed name, Lorenzo Drake.
Lorenzo Drake. Okay, there's a crucial psychological parallel again, isn't there?
Yeah.
Just like his life as a chauffeur.
Exactly. It's another role where he maintains this close proximity to power, to esoteric knowledge maybe, but under an invisible assumed identity. He remains the silent observer, even within the inner sanctum.
Fascinating. And he became deeply involved, you said.
Yeah, very involved with the teachings and the organization surrounding Castaneda. He even directed the first instructional videos on tensegrity for Clear Green.
Clear Green. That's the organization dedicated to Castaneda's specific system, right?
It's right. Tensegrity is Castaneda's system of movements and practices, and Wagner apparently has maintained close ties to that group, even following Castaneda's death in 1998.
We should probably pause and just briefly explain tensegrity, for those who don't know. It's a system of specific movements, postures. What's the intended purpose?
Well, as Castaneda developed and taught it, it's intended to promote well-being, shift consciousness, maybe redistribute energy in the body. It's a kind of physical and spiritual discipline combined.
Okay, so how does that kind of discipline, tensegrity, connect back to the Hollywood environment that Wagner writes about so relentlessly? They seem like polar opposites.
Well, think about it. Tensegrity is all about cultivating energy, presence, awareness, clearing the sort of spiritual fog, perhaps. And Hollywood, at least as Wagner portrays it, is the absolute epitome of spiritual exhaustion, isn't it? It's all about artificiality, ego, illusion.
Right.
So tensegrity could be seen as the ultimate practical antidote to the world he critiques. His characters are constantly seeking these artificial fixes, cosmetic surgery, drugs, fame, validation. Wagner himself, through this practice, seems to be seeking a real, rigorous way out of the spiritual trap that he spends all his books detailing.
That makes a lot of sense. It's his personal counter-narrative, and his literary career eventually started to cross over overtly into the spiritual world, too.
Yeah, it did. His novel Memorial, which came out around 2006, it was actually positively reviewed by a Buddhist monk in Tricycle magazine.
Oh, Tricycle, the Buddhist Review, that's a major publication in contemporary Buddhism.
Exactly. And that favorable review led to an invitation for Wagner to contribute an autobiographical essay for Tricycle.
And did he?
He did. The essay was called The Art of Reality, and in it, he detailed his experiences with Castaneda, providing this really intimate look into his own spiritual life and search. And he reflects specifically on the simple but not easy lessons of his teacher, Castaneda.
Simple but not easy, that phrase. It really encapsulates the central tension of his entire body of work, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's simple, perhaps, to understand intellectually that Hollywood is morally corrupt or spiritually bankrupt, but actually escaping its gravitational pull, spiritually, professionally, personally, that's profoundly difficult. Not easy at all.
Precisely. And just for, contextual completeness, we should probably mention that this intensely productive, spiritually questing life also included some high-profile personal relationships along the way.
Right. His marriages. He was married to the actress Rebecca De Mornay for a time.
Yeah, from 1986 to 1990, early in his burgeoning career. And then later, he was married to Laura Peterson from 2009 to 2017.
Okay. And currently?
He's currently partnered with the actress Jamie Rose. So, these relationships took place while he was deeply entrenched in the very industry he was simultaneously observing, satirizing, and maybe trying to spiritually transcend. More duality.
Always the duality.
Yeah.
And despite all the conflicts, the censorship battles, the spiritual questing, the radical professional choices, his literary productivity hasn't flagged at all, has it? He seems incredibly sustained and focused as a cultural observer.
Remarkably so. His output continues right into the current decade. In 2022, he released Orar, American Master, the oral biography of Roger Orr. It's a continuation of his satirical style, examining the figure of a powerful, maybe monstrous literary figure through an oral history format.
Sounds very Wagner. And he has upcoming work, too.
Yeah, two significant upcoming works mentioned in the sources. One is The Met Gala and Tales of Saints and Seekers, two novellas expected in 2024. I mean, that title alone.
Perfectly summarizes the duality again. The Met Gala and Saints and Seekers.
Exactly. And then another novel, simply titled Amputation, is apparently scheduled for 2025. So he's constantly exploring that space between the high society facade, the grotesque, and the underlying spiritual search. He's not slowing down. Hashtag tag outro.
So when you look back at it all, Bruce Wagner's career is really this incredible testament to the power of the observer, isn't it?
Yeah.
He started as the ultimate outsider-insider, the Beverly Hills High School dropout, who literally drove the elite around town.
Yeah, giving him this completely unparalleled ground-level education in the mechanics of modern wealth, vanity, desperation, all of it.
And he weaponized that perspective, didn't he? He evolved into the ultimate insider who then ruthlessly, brilliantly satirizes the very industry he works within.
But crucially, he always imbues that critique with this profound spiritual yearning. You feel it underneath the satire, drawn from figures like Carlos Castaneda, maybe the tenets of Buddhism. He just embodies that tension, the tension between the profane, glittering, often ugly surface of modern Los Angeles and the transcendent search for some kind of enduring meaning.
And understanding Wagner's unique perspective, this Hollywood spiritual observer, as you call him, it really offers you, the listener, a far richer, much more nuanced view of celebrity culture than you get from typical tabloid fare or superficial commentary.
Definitely. He's not just reporting on the chaos or mocking the excess. He seems to be suggesting maybe that the material decay and the almost apocalyptic nature of modern fame, maybe that's actually a necessary catalyst, something that pushes people or could push people toward deeper, more difficult spiritual truths.
That's a fascinating idea, that the darkness is part of the path.
Perhaps. And ultimately, his decision regarding the Marvel Universe origin stories, that whole censorship fight, it provides such a powerful lesson about integrity, about artistic freedom.
Yeah, choosing to release his work for free into the public domain rather than compromise the specific language he believed was essential to his satirical art. Specifically, language used by a character about herself.
A character's voice.
So we really want to leave you with this final, maybe provocative thought to mull over. What is the ultimate cost of artistic freedom in our contemporary world? When an artist like Wagner decides that the integrity of a single word used specifically to establish a fictional character's voice and perspective is actually worth more than the entire potential profit derived from that book. What does that really tell us about the value we place on truth, or artistic truth, versus the constraints of the market, or maybe the fear of offense?
It's a huge question, and it resonates far beyond just the borders of Beverly Hills or the publishing world, doesn't it? It touches on free speech, art, commerce, sensitivity, everything.
A really difficult question, as you say, but one we are maybe fortunate that Wagner was willing to pose so dramatically, so publicly with his actions.
Indeed, he forced the issue.
Well, that's the deep dive for today. We really hope you enjoyed exploring the complex, contradictory, and utterly fascinating universe of Bruce Wagner.